Praise the Lord for each and every one of you being out here tonight and giving me the opportunity to tell what happened to me just 28 days ago. What happened to me and the story that the Lord had laid on my heart to tell the whole world, it sounds like it's come straight out of the Bible, a story straight out of the Bible. Lord, give me strength to make it so simple that a child can understand how easy salvation really is. On August the 15th, it was a Saturday, just before 10 o'clock Saturday night, myself, Scott Clark, and Alex Miles had got in a boat. We'd all been scuba diving, or we was going scuba diving. We'd been certified in spring. And it was just a regular thing for us to go back in Nickajack Cave at night and secure catfish. Yes, there's catfish bigger than I am back there, but this is not a fish story. We tied them to the fence with a boat, got all of our gear intact, got all our scuba equipment ready, got in the water, and started back in the cave. We had went down about 4 times. Probably everybody's here has seen the Nickajack Cave. It's about 100 to 175 foot wide entrance with a 35 foot or so to the water to the roof. And it's a large body, a channel of water that goes back in the mountain, curves to the well, opens up to what they call the bathroom. It's a large room there, estimated 76,000 grave bats. And there's probably every bit of it back there. They're full. We had, after about 4 times of going down, coming up, working our way back to the back, we had went down for the last time. Me and Scott Clark left our friend Alex Miles out in the cave. He was on top of the water, had scuba equipment on, but he was standing out there watching the bats, waiting on us to come up. Myself and Scott had went down and probably stayed down for about 8 or 10 minutes and decided we was going to come back up, thinking we'd be right back up in the main part of the cabin out there where Alex is waiting. And we came up to solid rock. Wasn't any air, just water and rock. So the first thing we done is try to calm each other down a little bit, you know, to convince ourselves we're just over a little overhang. All we got to do is make a little circle. We'll be out of it. We'll find our way right out. And that's what we attempted to do. But as we made a circle, made a bigger, greater circle, couldn't find our way out and started hitting rock all the way around. So then, the oxygen that's on your back, you can use it up just like that by breathing hard, by getting excited. And that's exactly what we was doing. We was pumping something. We both, one of us, I don't remember which one it was, stopped the other. You know, okay, let's calm down. We went down to the bottom of the cavern that we was in, and Scott had a compass on the back of his gauges. He reached and got him. We knew that north was an exit out of the cave towards the railroad tracks, was north. And we knew if we would go in that general area, direction, that we would be heading towards the way out. So Scott had got down on the bottom of the cavern there on his knees, held his gauges, trying to level his compass, trying to find north. And I had a larger tank than Scott did. I had exactly 2,000 pounds at that time. Under normal conditions, if you wasn't breathing real hard, it was good for about 30 minutes. Scott had a smaller tank and had about 800 pounds of air, which is good for a lot less time. I knew that. I motioned to Scott that I was going to go look up for an air pocket or something to try to, before we could top it out and not waste all our air trying to find our way out. I went up, and as I started up, unknowingly, my fins dusted him out, knocked up silt and mud off the bottom, and he had to move when I did. I'd went up to the top, which the roof of that particular cabin was about 25 foot. Swam up to the top, looked around for a while, couldn't find any air. During, with a good light, both of us had lights. With a good light, and if you didn't stir up anything, visibility 6 or 8 foot, you could tell what something was. It was just colors beyond that. It was gray, or it was red clay looking. The walls of the cave was that color. And if you get separated, after you pass 15, 18 foot or so, you can't even see a light. There's so many little particles in the water. I mean, even that cave is pitch black. It was dark anyway. It was at night, but it's pitch black back in there. We was a long ways back in the mountain. And after looking for the air up there, I couldn't find anything. So I came back down, and I came down to muddy water where Scott was. I cut off my light, couldn't see his light anyway. So the first thing that occurred to me is he went back up. He went up after me. So turned my light back on and started up, went up to the roof, made a couple of circles, passes. Couldn't see him anywhere. Couldn't see no light, turned off my light, couldn't see him anywhere. Knew that we both running out of air. And for the next 20 minutes, I started swimming through the cave, totally disoriented, didn't know by any means which north, south, east, or west was. The only thing you know is what's up and down by your bubbles. That's the only way you're floating, weightlessness. And if it wasn't for the bubbles, you wouldn't know what up and down was. I swam for about 20 minutes, running into dead ends, honeycombs that probably brought me back to the same place I was in. I didn't know, but I was going, the direction that I went was taking me deeper back into the cave. At the time I didn't know it. I finally swam until I could see with my light. I was following the roof of the cave, and it was limestone rock, and it was just like poured cement, smooth as could be. I swam. Finally I could see some air. The first thing that occurred to me was I was back out in a cavern, back out where Alex was waiting. And when I popped up in there was a little air pocket. It was a pretty good size air pocket. It wasn't very tall. It was about 18 inches tall. It was about 25 yards long, about 12 yards wide. The highest point was 18 inches. From there, it just tapered, played out into the water to nothing. There's a little stalactite at the middle of it. It was about the size of a football, shaped kind of like a football, hung down within an inch of the water. And I swam over to it, took off my hood, stuck it in my BC, inflated my BC. A BC is a balance control device. It's part of your scuba equipment. It's like an inflatable vest you can pump up off your air tank. Pumped it up. It got me out of the water about up to my neck. I didn't have to fight it. I know the paper said I treaded water for 20 years. Nobody tread water for 20 years. I was just floating. I hung on that little stalactite, cut off my light, and for the next probably 6 or 8 hours, all I could think about was Scott. Didn't know if he was dead or alive. I knew what I was going through before I found that air pocket. Everything would go through your mind. You're trying to breathe slow, trying to hold them breaths and make the air last so you can find your way out. And all I could think about was what I was going through, the thoughts of how it would be like to take that last breath, to take that first breath of water. And I've always heard that drowning was an easy death, like you go to sleep. That went through my mind before I found that air pocket. This was about 10:30 by the time I found the air pocket. And just a little after. I stayed there till about 2 o'clock before I tried to find my way out. And I like to try to describe the environment around that air pocket. That little stalactite was in the middle. I always kept a hold of it. And on one side of it, there was a solid rock wall where the air ended into the water, about 30 foot to the bottom, about 30 foot of water underneath. Solid rock wall, and all the way around on 3 sides, it was just like poured cement. The limestone rock run into the water about a foot, and just leveled off, just flat. And so about 2 o'clock, 2:30, it came to me, well, the outside, the back room may be 10 yards or so, just under the water, just maybe that simple of getting out of here. So I took my knife out, and I always kept that rock wild in my back. There's fish constantly splashing in the cavern, and just come up and splash, and startled me at first before the night was over, and just never even paid any attention. It was so common. I went, put my mask on, the regulator in, deflated my BC so I could sink it. I went down to the right, scratching a trail along the top of the roof so I could find my way back. I knew there was air behind me if I got in trouble. Every direction I went was either a solid wall, limestone passage that narrowed down to something you couldn't fit through, you had to turn around. And I had timed myself. I had an underwater watch with a light, and I had about 8 minutes worth of air if I breathed normal, regularly. And I had it made up in my mind I was going to go for 3.5 minutes in one direction, and come back and try it 3.5 minutes in the other direction. And if I breathe right, I should have a minute or so worth of air, enough to keep my BC inflated if I didn't make it. So I went to the right first and didn't get me anywhere. So I swam back. I followed my little scratch trail back. This was about 2 o'clock. About 4:30, I done the same thing to the left. Same results, nothing. Just solid rock wall or no way out. I followed my way back. When I got back, I had about 3 minutes worth of air left in my tank. I remember looking at my watch whenever it got daylight, whenever it should have got daylight, about 7 o'clock or so past time, and thinking, well, the divers are probably really going to start searching big time now. And through the night, from about 3 o'clock or so, I could hear bubbles filtering through the cave. The bubbles that comes up out of a diver's lungs, if you've ever dove and been down in the water whenever somebody's breathing, you know what they sound like. I don't know if it's because they come out of their lungs or what, but as they come up from depth, they separate, usually into 3 bubbles, and they come up and they separate. It makes a noise, you know what they are when you hear them. So I had heard that all night. I'd heard bubbles filtering up. You could tell whenever they would stop at rocks, just hunt the high side and come on up. And I'd heard that for so long, I was just tempted to go down. And there at one point, some bubbles actually came up in the air pocket that I was at. First thing that occurred to me was right under me. All I got to do is go down and intercept them. Put my mask on, regulator in, deflated quick. And whenever you deflate with as many weights as I wear, normally you'll deflate, and then after you start going down, you'll add a little air to equalize, to get neutral, and then you're weightless. I deflated, didn't add any air, went down, straight down to the bottom. When I got to the bottom, about 30 foot of water, it's just boulders on the bottom underneath that cavern I was at. And the bubbles was actually coming out of the boulder. That's when I really lost hope. I knew that the divers was at least one level in below me. It started coming to me that maybe I came through just a tiny air pocket or a hole that may be the only one that even leads up there to where I was. I really lost hope. I came back up and hit that air pocket, inflated, and just hung on to the stalactite and waited. And about 10:30 or 11 o'clock fast time, I decided that the next time that I heard any bubbles come through the cave, that I was going to go down to the bottom and just try to intercept them. I had just about 3 minutes worth of air left on my back. I was going to hold my breath and make it last just as long as I could. I really didn't feel like they was going to find me. I knew that I would run out of air and air. I felt like I would before they found me. And that took a lot of guts. That just flat took a lot. That effort was I was either going to make it or I was going to run out of air way down there where I couldn't get no more. The next time I heard any bubbles, that's what I done. I swam out there, mask on, regulator in the mouth, and I deflated. by all means, I should just sunk feet first. But instead, I turned around head first, and you know you're going down when you feel the bubbles coming up your back, coming up your legs. Swam straight down. Swam. Never did come to the bottom. I was swimming long enough, I should have been to the bottom twice as soon as I was at that point. I was thinking. First thing I thought was I was going into another underwater cabin, taking me deep down in the ground. It scared me to death. I wheeled around, was going to try to hit that air pocket up there. When I wheeled around, my head came out of the water. That should not have happened. I should have by all means sunk feet first. Besides swimming with those fins, that scared me to death. That's the first time I felt the presence of the Lord right there. This was about 10:30 or 11 o'clock. And I went on till about 12 o'clock. Been in there for 14 hours. God forgive me before I said the first prayer. Or this chance. I didn't know it, but at 12 o'clock, about the time I started praying, I found out later there was a lot of people praying for me in churches, down on the beach. And no doubt in my mind, the Lord heard that. And He was pleased with what He heard. So many good Christian people saying prayers all together, trying to help somebody that a lot of y'all know me, that shouldn't have had any help, the kind of life I've lived. But the Lord heard it, and I believe He was pleased. He started putting conviction on me. Let me see the father I hadn't been, the husband I should have been, the influence on a lot of people that I'm sorry. I am sorry that I have been a bad influence on a lot of people, a lot of young people my age. I'm ashamed of that now. And I asked the Lord to forgive me, right there. I didn't have to be in the altar. I was in there bobbing necktie, hanging on that little stalactite. But the Lord heard me, and He knew it was coming from the heart. He knew there wasn't nothing standing in between me and Him. Nothing I had, nothing meant anything. The Lord knew what it would take to bring me down enough to humble myself, to open my heart to Him. And that's what He done. I didn't know He had a plan for me that He did at the time. I asked the Lord to come into my life. And I didn't have to sit there and beg Him for 12 hours. Just as soon as the Lord knew I meant it from my heart, He came into my life just like that. I'd like to try to describe the feeling that I had in that cave when He came to me. I've said it many times, it's the only way I can describe it. It was like a big, invisible presence, a hand reached clean in my body, all the way to my toes. 3 different times. I must have had a lot of evil in me. 3 different times He pulled out pure evil. Every time He would pull it out, I could feel it when the end of it come out. I felt so clean, so alive. Never had a feeling like that before in my life. 3 different times. I was just sitting there hanging on that stalactite, praising God for what He'd just done for me. And with no power from myself at all. Totally paralyzed. He laid me back in the water with His own hands, baptized me right there. And all those places that was in me that He just took out the evil was filled with the Spirit. The Spirit of God is still there right now. It glows. He done something for me. And immediately after He done that, I started begging the Lord to take me right then. Never felt so clean, so alive in my life. Just begging Him to take me right then. And the Lord started talking to me. It's the first time the Lord has ever said anything to me. It wasn't a conversation like me or you would have, a voice, a verbal conversation. It was like, I'm in my mind, God's in my heart. And it was clear. You didn't have to wonder what He was saying. I wondered what He was going to say next. It was real clear. Everything He said was real clear, real to the point. He told me to get my family ready to meet Him, which I've had a good wife. She's been a good Christian for a while. for a long time. It was a good influence on me if I'd have just listened to her and looked. Had a lot of people to witness. Made a lot of people in here has lived a good life, and I don't know, when the old devil's in front of your face, you just can't see. After the blinders are taken off, you can see real clear. The Lord told me to get my family ready to meet Him. And I'm not putting anything to it. I'm not taking anything away to what the Lord said in it. He said, tell the whole world that I'll be coming for my children before the year 2000. That's exactly what He said. And just after He said that, there I was in that cave, in that hole. Didn't have any reason to think I was going to make it out at the time. Knew what the Lord had just done for me. I was thankful for that. I was ready to go. I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, how can I tell the whole world? He never did answer. So He let me know right then, that moment, as soon as I asked Him, it'd be taken care of. And I've always heard about visions, things like that. Of course, I never had one until then. I had a vision. Lord, give me a vision. The only way I can describe a vision is a conscious dream, not something that's played out on the wall in front of you. Just clear, and just like you think you're there in a dream, just like that, only you're awake, you're conscious. You can see it on the dream. He let me see myself leave that cave in a boat in the daylight hours in my little black wetsuit. He let me see myself go over to the bank over at Mapleview, get out of the boat, tell the whole world God came into my life, saved my soul. And His message, what He told me to tell, that He would be here for His children before the year 2000. That's what I done. I got over. From 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, when the Lord first started dealing with me, it seemed like a week or two. From 12 o'clock to 5 o'clock, that's when I actually seen the presence of the Lord leave that cave. It seemed like 15 or 20 minutes. It passed just like that. After the Lord started dealing with me, that little stalactite I hung on to, I was holding on to the hand of God. He held my hand for 5 hours there. I told my wife after either the next day or so, I think it really touched her. I told her, I said, all the things that's going on in the world, as wicked as it is, the Lord took time to hold my hand in that cave. After 5 o'clock, in total, complete darkness, couldn't by no means see your hand in front of your face, total darkness, and water up to here, holding on that stalactite. I was looking straight across from me, and I seen something. It wasn't bright. It was just light enough that you could see it. I'd like to try to describe it. It was about 12 foot wide, about 8 or 12 inches off the water. It was a fog. It was a mist looking. There was 4 lighter objects about that big all along in that mist. They didn't stay in one place. They moved around in it. Couldn't take my eyes off of it. It's the first thing I've seen in that cave, in that cavern and everything. And it just started, it was going so slow you could just barely tell it was moving. I didn't know at the time the significance of what I was watching. But there's 2 things happening after that God was trying to show me a sign as it left. As that mist started going away from me, it was going right through solid rock, what was solid rock right there. I could see a dark shadow to the right of it. As it had went around, I could see it going around that dark shadow, what appeared to be a rock. And then as it started around it, I could tell it was going up. And after I lost complete sight of it, I could still see the reflection of it in the water. And it just went down to nothing. In total amazement what I've just seen, what the Lord just done for me the past few hours. just a short time after that, this was 4 or 5 o'clock or so, and just a short time after that, the air started getting real thin. It started getting real hot and nauseating, having to take real deep breaths to get any air. I didn't know it at the time, but what started off as me holding that little stalactite right here at head level. Slowly, TVA had been dropping water. My arm had been having to reach up. Didn't realize I was having to reach up. It was so gradual. I swapped hands with it. And I was running out of air in there. It was hard to breathe, and I started hearing a noise. It was coming straight from the direction the Lord had. And the noise kept getting louder, and louder, and louder. Before it's over with, it sounded like a freight train. I didn't know what it was. I knew it was coming right at me. And it was really getting hard to breathe, and the Lord knew that. So He brought me some air. As that water was going down, the air that was in that little pocket I was in, I'd already breathed a lot of the oxygen that was in it, no doubt. But the air that was in there was stretching. It was getting thin. It created such a vacuum that it pulled air, solid, smooth rock to water. The air was coming right across it, and it was making a roaring noise. It didn't just all come in there at one time. The only way I can describe it is like a 5-gallon bucket of air. Every time it come in, the water would go down. The air would come in for 15 minutes. It done that. Felt so cool. Felt so alive. Felt so good. Praising God the whole time for what He just done for me. There's a bunch of miracles happening in that cave. It's not just a miracle that I come in there, that I come out of there. There's a lot of miracles happening in that cave to bring me out of there that if every one of them hadn't happened, I wouldn't have come. After that had come in there, the air, just before 6 o'clock, started hearing, there's something happened right before that. I was hanging on that stalactite with my left hand. And like I said, it was about the size of a football. And I was thinking to myself, Lord, how I'd like, I wasn't praying, I was just thinking to myself, how I'd like to take that stalactite home with me, just to have it, for the Lord's hand was in it. I know it was, He was holding my hand through it. I was hanging on that stalactite down below this right here. I'd hung on to it and traded wet hands so many times that I'd actually wore like a pistol grip in the bottom of it. This piece of rock came off of that stalactite. It hit my hand right there and right there. Pulled my fingers around it, couldn't see anything, the light had went completely out. Pulled my BC where my little hood was, stuck it in the sleeve of it. Didn't know what it was for certain, but I knew it felt like a rock. It looks like it's been cut with a saw, a rock cutting saw. I never did hit the rock. I did bump it by no means. It looked like it's been cut with a saw. It's just a little souvenir from God. And He gave me some scripture later on that I'm going to read in just a minute, but it's got a lot to do with that rock. I started hearing a noise. It was very, very far off. It sounded just like music. It sounded like a real weak violin. And it really had my attention, because that's the first ear hearing that I've done in that cave besides the fish splashing. I got to hear it. It was getting closer and closer. And it was to Dennis Curry. Can't remember the other guy's name. Dennis Curry was one of them. 2 spelunkers, subdivers. They're experts at what they do in rescue. Subterranean divers. They're cavers, and they also go underwater. They've got tanks on their back. Helmet with a series of lights. They was coming back through the cave under a very narrow, whenever they let the water down, but the rock to the water was about like that. They was having to come through like that, looking for me. They was talking to each other. And their voices, by the time it got back to me, bouncing off the walls and mixing. It sounded just like a music. By the time you got back there, the voices were so mixed together. After a while, I could make it out that it was humans, it was human voices. And I stood it just as long as I could, and I hollered out, "Hey!" And the voices stopped. I knew they'd heard me. Just a few seconds, one of them hollered back, "Hey!" I hollered back at him, "Hey!" Later on, one of them said he thought that was an echo. And it was like a Mexican standoff. Neither one of them said anything. And just a little bit, one of them hollered out, "David." I hollered out, "What?" I could hear them laughing. They weren't expecting to find anybody alive. They were expecting to find a body. One of the guys in the rescue had been doing it for 25 years. He was the head, the foremost man there. He said this is the first time it's ever been an ending like this. It's always been a body. A diver in the cave. And they came. And in about 10 minutes, I could start seeing their light. And what I was seeing, I don't know if it startled me or what, but it all came together. Straight in front of me, same way the Lord led. Same way the air came. I could see a light. I could tell it was a flashlight, shimmering across the water. And there was a dark stone that was underwater when the Lord left. It was a dark stone, and the water went around it. The spelunkers was coming from this way. Their light was shining around. I couldn't say anything. The Lord was trying to show me the way out when He left. He also showed me what was underwater and the way it led. I just didn't know. After I could see their light, I hollered at them to stay where they was, and I'd come to it. Put my mask on. There was just an opening about like that. After I got over to the edge, I took a deep breath, went down, finally made my way over to them. All they could do was laugh. They couldn't believe it. They wasn't expecting to find a live person back there. We started out and got to the boat. And I remember getting in the boat and starting out the cave and seeing the light at the cave. First light I've seen. It was so good. Lord let me know I was going to get out of there before dark in the daylight hours. It happened just like He showed. We started out of the cave, and on the TVA is built a platform, a little observation deck to watch the bats at night. The only person, there were people all over the place right there. The only person I could see, couldn't take my eyes off of him, was my dad, standing there on the right-hand side of that, at the corner. Everybody said he stood there all day long. It's 2 o'clock that morning and just been waiting. Maybe not there in that spot, but whenever you come over there for you to stay. And later on, Dad had told me that every time a boat would come out of the cave, he'd always be looking down in the boat, expecting to see me in the bottom of the boat. And as I was coming out, Dad was looking in the bottom of the boat. I was sitting on the left-hand side, directly across from the driver. Dad was looking down the boat, no expression whatsoever on his face. He just about pulled off and looked back at me. I give him the old thumbs up like I was okay. Never seen nobody so happy in my life. In a matter of about 5 seconds or so, I guess, as we came out of the outside of the cave, everybody knew that I was okay. It was like a chain reaction all the way to the beach. Everybody was I'm sure thanking God. They ought to. I remember coming out of the entrance of that cave and kind of stretching and looking over at Maple View just to see if it was going to be just like the Lord showed me. It was. It appeared to be hundreds of people over there, jumping up and down. And I remember thinking on the way over there, how many people in this old world has God done what He did to me? The most important thing was saving my soul. But after that, he saved my life. And he gave me a chance to give his testimony. He knew that I would take the Bible and run with it, or he wouldn't give it to me. He'd let me die in it. I remember thinking, how many people had God give that chance to? God rescue, save their soul, rescue their body, and then turn their back on him. We got over there to the dock, and as soon as I could, of course, everybody was happy there. As soon as I could, I let everybody know what God had done for me. I told twice in front of TV cameras that God had saved my soul, and only one of them showed it. Channel 3. It was live. They showed it. Channel 9 didn't show it. They don't want to hear about God, or they would have. The rescue was fantastic down there, but the message is beyond fantastic. Words can't describe the feeling that the Lord put in my heart, and the message to tell the whole world. That's where I'm headed with it. And I told everybody down there the message the Lord gave me, that He told me that He would be back before the year 2000. And after me asking the Lord, how can I tell the whole world, things started happening. It's been happening every day since. Monday, a radio station in New York and Chicago called a house and did a live interview. Tuesday, I didn't know it, but the story went on API International. A lady from Australia called a house Tuesday and did a live interview. Never was able to do that interview. I stayed out of work Wednesday to try to do some of them. And the Lord sent the first one from Chicago. I know he done it to help me, to show me what was out there. The radio station from Chicago called, and all they wanted to hear was a fish story. Every time I tried to tell them what the Lord had done for me, they'd tell the story. Well, Mr. Gant, what about the fish? What about the fish? And as I try to tell them, the fish is not the issue here. The real story, the Lord saved my soul, and I'm trying to tell him what the message was, and he just mysteriously ran out of time. Cut me short. That helped. The Lord let that radio station announcer call and ask me that for a purpose, to let me know what was out there and how to deal with it. Tuesday evening, it's Thursday evening, David Brewer from the Huntsville Times called and asked to do an interview. Come to my house. I let him know right off the bat what it would take to get an interview. To tell the whole story, what the Lord done for me, his message. He agreed to it, and he come up and done that. He's the only one really that had got the story, everything about it, what God done for me in his message. And oh, I'm sorry, that was Tuesday. And he came Friday. And that Wednesday, another lady called, Karen Dewberry from New Hope. It's between Huntsville and Gunnersville. She's Catholic. She called and asked if sometime I could come to her house and tell my story to a bunch of her friends. I told her I was coming Friday. So I went, and she said it would be great. So I went Friday and done an interview. I'm getting ahead of myself again. There's a lady from the Victory Network, 58, Cable 58 called and wanted to do an interview Friday in Huntsville. It's a Christian station. Told her I'd love to. She told me the story. She said that after reading that Huntsville paper, she went to sleep that night. She's a good Christian woman, really strong with God. She had a dream. She had a dream that there was a woman in a house, in a country house, just her by herself, running through the house frantically, looking for anything that had anything to do with Christianity or the Bible or anything. The Lord had come, raptured this old world. She was left alone. Imagine what the world would be without Christians on it. She said she was looking at the woman running through the house, and then she became the woman. She could feel the things the lady was feeling: the loneliness, the terror, the emptiness. She said she went over to the TV and picked up a VCR tape, and had my testimony on it. She said she woke up. She called me the next day. I wasn't home, so the next night after that, she got a hold of me and told me that story before it was over with, and her both was crying. I told her I'd love to come down and make that interview. So I did that Friday. Me and my mom went down. After I made that interview, I went to Karen Dewberry's house. There was 18 of them. It's Catholic people. Catholics aren't the only ones that starve them to death today, but they are. Some of them, the ones that was down there are. They're starving to death for anything to do with God and what's happening today in the world, worldwide. They collect anything, newspaper clippings, tapes, anything to do with God. They depend on, after talking with them in length, my mother stayed down there about 8 hours. Got home about 3:30 that night. We was the first ones to leave too. After talking to them, we found out they depend on somebody else as a mediator to go between God and them. And God help them, that's not going to get them to heaven. It's got to be a one-on-one relationship. No one tell what's in your heart when you're ready to accept the Lord. And God help you if you wait for an experience like I had. I feel like that's why the Lord has put it on my heart, because everybody's not going to have a chance like I did. The Lord will be here before the year 2000. There's no doubt in my mind. Not the year 2000, before the year 2000 is what He told me. There's no doubt in my mind. The Lord don't think He will be here before then. I'd tried to read the Bible in the past, and it never made any sense to me. Never made a bit of, I couldn't comprehend what was written in the Bible. Since the Lord came into my life, every single verse is perfectly clear, makes perfectly good sense, and it seems like it's thing that's happening today. It has to do with things that's happening right now today. It was wrote 2,000 years ago for us today. Revelation is mainly what I've been reading. I read several books, and then I've read all the way to Revelation's 2nd chapter, 16th verse. I'd never read in my whole life so much Bible as I did that night. I was the only one in the house, and I was laid in bed. I pray to God for guidance, for wisdom to help me to spread His message, to tell it just exactly the way He wants it told. And Revelation 2nd chapter, 17th verse, I feel like it was written for me. It says, "He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches." This is the very next verse I read after praying to God. "To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knoweth, saveth he that receiveth it." Like the 17th verse is written just for me. Praise God. Since I'd got out of that cave, there's a lot of good Christian people, preachers, told me a lot of things that one of them was down there, the one that told me this next verse in Matthew 16:4. It really touched my heart. It was Jesus speaking to the Pharisees. This is the first book of the New Testament. They was asking him about when the Lord was coming back. And on the 4th verse, it said, "A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it, but the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and departed. Because a lot of people refer to that experience I had as old David in the belly of the mountain, Jonah in the belly of the whale. I heard that a lot before the preacher told me that verse, and he said he felt like he didn't even tell me. It really touched my heart. I feel like all the prayers that was prayed for me were very, very pleasing in God's eyes. I feel like the message He put on my heart is a gift to everybody. People that's got the Lord in their life, as a comfort to know that it's not long before we're going to meet Him. He's going to bring His children home. And to those that haven't got the Lord in their life, as a warning. It took just pure terror, pure fear to bring me down. I'm sorry to say that now. To bring me down to where I'd turn to God. God knew that. And if the thought of being left on this world, as wicked as it is now, without any people on it with God in their life, being left here alone in this old world, if that's not pure terror, I went through nothing down there in that cave compared to that. Imagine what it would be like to be on this old world after the rapture, God came, took all His children. Imagine what it'd be like. And it's coming, it's soon. God told me He'd be here before the year 2000, and I believe it. Seems like every 2,000 years something happens. I've been to a lot of churches, and I've had people say everything. There's something in the air. 2 different people said it in 2 different churches. There's something in the air. Something's going to happen. Revelations is just about fulfilled. I feel like the testimony He put on my heart is just a little part of Revelation. It's a sign. Call it a sign of Jonah or whatever. It's a sign, and it's a warning. God's coming. If you haven't got Him in your heart, it's not going to be long. God's not going to give everybody a chance like He did me. He's not going to be able to bring you down and make you sick. There's not enough time. Salvation's real easy. There's nothing to it. All you got to do is humble yourself, humble your heart, and mean it from the heart, not your mind. All you got to do is put just a little crack in that old hard heart, just enough for the Lord to get His finger in it. After He does, it's going to go wide open. You're going to take it. You're going to be changed. And you're not going to lose anything. I always thought, I wouldn't be able to do anything. You can still do everything you want to do. That's just it. Anything that's not pleasing to the Lord, you're not going to want to do it. It's not in you. You're gaining out and losing nothing. I'd like to thank everybody for having me here tonight. And if there's anybody here that's not saved, ain't got the Lord in their life, don't believe they're going to get a chance like I did. It's kind of like standing on top of Nigga Cave when you're back there. I've experienced it. I've been saved and back there on the pews. It's kind of like standing on top of Nigga Cave, just trying to get your courage up, just to make that first step out of the pew or off the side. After you do it, you're going to hit the water. It's going to be okay. All you got to do is make that first step. It's going to be real easy to walk up here, pray to God, and if you're humble, it's in your heart. It's going to come into your life. Looking back now, I don't know how I went to sleep at night with the Lord not in my life. I don't know how. Might not have woke up the next day. I surely went to hell. I know now. I begged the Lord to take my life in that cave, and He saved me for a purpose. Life is great, but everlasting life is what we're here, is what it's all about. Thank you all for having me here tonight. And God bless you all. If you ain't got God in your life, make that first step.